My mom called me at the garage. Don't come home for Christmas. You're a 27-year-old failure. I asked why. She screamed. You fix motorcycles. No house, no wife, no kids. You're an embarrassment. My sister shouted. We voted. You're banned. Then they laughed and said, we took your $4,000. Consider it a down payment. I said, you'll regret this. The smell of engine oil always reminded me of home. I was elbow deep in the guts of a classic Norton Commando, rebuilding its crankcase, when my phone started buzzing on the workbench. My hands were too greasy to answer at first, but when I saw Mom flashing on the screen, I wiped my fingers on a rag and picked up. Before I could even say hello, her voice cut through, sharp and cold. Don't bother coming home for Christmas this year, Dean. You're a disgrace to this family. I froze, the wrench slipping from my hand and clattering onto the concrete floor. What? What are you talking about? Laughter erupted in the background, my siblings. I recognized Brad's mocking tone, followed by a high-pitched voice that could only be my sister, Amanda. We voted Dean. You're out. No Christmas for losers. My jaw tightened. Mom, what the hell is this? Her voice didn't waver. If you want to be part of this family again, you can start by paying back the $50,000 you owe us. I blinked, stunned. $50,000? I don't owe you a cent. What are you talking about? For raising you, feeding you, putting a roof over your head. Do you think that was free? She snapped. You're nothing but a taker. Even your brother and sister agree. Brad's voice rang out again, dripping with sarcasm. Better start selling those rust buckets you work on, Dean. Maybe you'll earn a spot at the table next year. I gripped the phone, fighting to keep my voice steady. This is insane. I've never asked you for money. Oh, don't act innocent. Mom spat. We already took the $4,000 you left in that safe in your old room. Consider it a down payment on what you owe. The breath caught in my throat. You stole my money? That was for emergencies. Amanda laughed in the background. Guess you'll need a new hiding spot, genius. The line went quiet for a moment, just my mother's harsh breathing. $50,000, Dean. That's the price of family. Otherwise, don't ever come back. I swallowed hard, staring at the half-assembled Norton on the stand in front of me. My mind raced. Every petty insult, every time they'd called my work a hobby or a waste of time, every lie they'd spread about me being broke. I thought I was used to it. I thought I could take it. But this, stealing from me, and then demanding more, this was something else. Fine, I said quietly. Don't worry about me coming back. Good. Maybe you'll finally learn some respect, Mom said, and then the line went dead. I stood there, the silence of the shop pressing in around me, the hum of a single fluorescent light overhead. My hands trembled, but not from shock, from a slow, burning anger I hadn't felt in years. This was the final straw. I set my phone down on the workbench, wiped my greasy hands on the rag, and whispered to myself, never again. I'm done letting them do this to me. For the first time, I truly meant it. Back when I was a kid, my father's word was law. He was a third-generation cattle rancher, proud and stubborn as the day is long. The kind of man who believed calloused hands and hard labor were the only signs of worth. Anything that didn't fit that mold was worthless, including me. I guess I realized early on that I wasn't cut from his cloth. While my siblings learned to herd cattle and mend fences, I spent every spare moment behind the shed with a box of mismatched tools, tinkering with an old lawnmower engine I'd found at a yard sale. I was 15 when I first rebuilt it, piece by piece, teaching myself through library books and grainy YouTube videos on dial-up internet. The first time that engine roared to life, I felt something I'd never felt on the ranch. Pride that was mine, not something handed down. My father hated it. He'd pass by the shed, shake his head, and mutter, playing with junk again, huh? A real man works the land, Dean. Not whatever that is. He'd say the word mechanic, like it was an insult. It wasn't just him. My mother and siblings joined in, calling my hobby a cute face. Brad used to tell everyone at school that I was the weirdo who'd rather polish bolts than throw a football. Even Amanda, who pretended to be nice to my face, would mock me behind my back. Things came to a head when I was 17. I'd applied for a trade school apprenticeship in motorcycle restoration, one of the best programs in the state. I hadn't told my father because I knew what he'd say. When the acceptance letter came, I made the mistake of leaving it on the kitchen counter. That night at dinner, he dropped the letter in front of me, the paper already crumpled in his hands. You think you're going to waste your life fixing toys? Not under my roof. You'll work the ranch. That's real work. Family work. I don't want to work the ranch, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I want to build engines. That's what I'm good at. He laughed, a deep, bitter sound that still echoes in my head. You think anyone gives a damn about your greasy hobbies? You'll come crawling back when you realize the real world doesn't want you. The next morning, the letter was gone. I found it later, ripped in half, stuffed into the trash under the sink. That was the day I decided I wasn't going to live my life under his thumb. I left home at 18 with nothing but a duffel bag, a set of cheap wrenches, and $200 I'd saved from mowing neighbors' lawns. The first few years were rough. I slept in my truck some nights, bouncing between odd jobs, oil changes, lawn care, even painting fences for people who reminded me way too much of my father. But I kept working, and eventually, I found my place at a vintage bike restoration shop in Dallas. It felt like family in all the ways mine wasn't. They respected the work, the craft, the passion. Even after I made it on my own, the lies didn't stop. My family told anyone who'd listen that I was broke, drifting, always begging for money. They painted me as the black sheep who'd abandoned them. I never bothered to correct them until now. Thinking back to that phone call, I realized it wasn't just about the stolen money. It was every year of belittlement. Every time they told me I'd never be enough. This time, I wasn't going to swallow it. The next morning, I drove straight to the police station. I'd never been the kind of guy to involve the law in family matters. But this was different. This was theft. I walked in with a folder under my arm, receipts, photos, even a picture of the old safe in my childhood room, back when I'd stashed the cash there. The officer behind the counter looked surprised when I calmly explained that my own family had broken in and stolen from me. "Do you have proof of the amount taken?" she asked, flipping through the paperwork. I nodded and handed over a photo of the safe's contents. For stacks of hundreds I'd saved over 2 years. $4,000, all in cash. They admitted it over the phone yesterday. The officer raised her eyebrows. "You have that call recorded?" I didn't, but that question planted a seed in my mind. I'd start recording everything from now on. After filing the report, I sat in my truck outside the station, staring at the phone in my hand. There was only one other group of people who'd ever truly cared about me growing up. My mom's parents, my grandparents who lived 2 states over in New Mexico. I hadn't spoken to them in years, not since Dad poisoned the well with his usual lies. I called my grandmother first. When she answered, her warm, shaky voice nearly broke me. "Dean, is that really you?" "Yeah, Grandma, it's me," I said, swallowing hard. "I need to tell you something about Mom and Dad. Something bad." As I explained what had happened, I could hear the disbelief in her silence. When I told her about the theft, her voice trembled. "Dean, your parents told everyone you were strung out. They said you stole from them, not the other way around." I closed my eyes, my grip tightening on the phone. "They've been lying to you for years. I've never touched a drug in my life. I've been working hard, Grandma. I'm doing fine." She sniffled, then called for Grandpa to pick up the other line. They both apologized, saying they'd believe the stories because they didn't know any better. That call changed something in me. For once, someone believed me over them. By the time I hung up, I was already thinking 2 steps ahead. If they'd spread lies about me, I'd spread the truth about them. I booked a consultation with a local lawyer that same afternoon. She told me to start documenting everything: texts, voicemails, old family group calls. "Build a file," she said, "whether you want to sue or just protect yourself." That night, I sat in the shop's office, scrolling through old voice messages. Years of insults and backhanded comments from my siblings filled my headphones. I started clipping them, saving each one with a timestamp and note. This wasn't for the police or a judge. This was for me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally fighting back. By midweek, I had everything I needed. My folder of evidence had grown into a digital mountain. Audio clips of my family mocking me, texts where they demanded money, and screenshots of every lie they told. I wasn't sure what to do with it all at first, but then I remembered something my old boss once told me. The truth hurts worst when everyone hears it at once. That Thursday night, I sat in front of my laptop with a beer, piecing together a video that told the whole story. It was half expose, half timeline, a brutal 30-minute documentary of my family's gaslighting and theft. The video started with a snippet of that Christmas phone call, Mom's voice sharp as knives. "Don't come home, Dean. You're a disgrace." Then Brad chimed in, laughing. "We voted you out, loser." I paired each clip with receipts, photos of the safe, and my bank statements showing how I'd never taken a dime from them. I even added a segment about my career, pictures of the vintage bikes I'd restored, my certifications, my pay stubs from the shop. If they wanted to call me a failure, I was going to show everyone exactly who was lying. When the video was finished, I sent it to every member of my extended family: aunts, uncles, cousins, even a few second cousins I barely knew. I included a note: "Before you believe another word about me, watch this." Then I sat back and waited. The first response came within an hour. My Aunt Lisa, furious and confused. "Dean, is this true? Did they really take your savings?" 10 minutes later, a cousin texted me. "Holy crap, I had no idea they were saying this stuff about you." By the next morning, the family group chat was a full-on war zone. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages. Aunts demanding explanations, cousins calling my parents toxic, and Amanda trying to claim the video was taken out of context. Nobody was buying it. But the best part came when I reached out to the family's longtime financial advisor, a man named Harold who had handled everyone's taxes and investments for decades. I told him I needed some information about my parents' financial situation, hinting that I had legal concerns. At first, he hesitated, but when I mentioned the police report, he opened up. "Dean," he said, his voice low and serious, "your parents are in deep trouble. They're over $200,000 in debt, multiple unpaid loans. They even borrowed from your Uncle Ray last year and haven't paid him back." Hearing that, I almost laughed. All those years they'd called me irresponsible, and here they were drowning in debt. By Thanksgiving morning, the group chat had gone nuclear. My aunts were openly accusing Mom and Dad of lying to everyone. Brad tried to deflect by calling me pathetic for airing family business. But one of my cousins snapped back, "Better than stealing from your own brother." I didn't stop there. That afternoon, I sent a formal legal notice to my parents. It was polite, but firm. They were to return the stolen $4,000 within 30 days, or I'd pursue legal action. I also included a list of their insults, word for word, pulled from my recordings. I wanted them to see how ugly they really sounded. For once, they were silent. Thanksgiving night was quiet until about 2 in the morning when pounding on my apartment door jolted me awake. At first, I thought it was some drunk neighbor, but then I heard my sister's voice, shrill and insistent. "Dean, open the door. We need to talk." I peeked through the peephole. There they were, my parents, Brad, and Amanda, all standing in the dim hallway like a pack of wolves. Dad's face was red. Mom looked on the verge of tears, and my siblings were glaring like they wanted to fight. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat. Mom tried to push past me, but I held the doorframe. "Dean, please," she said, her voice wobbling. "This has gone too far. The whole family is turning against us. We just need to talk and fix this." Brad crossed his arms, sneering. "You made us look like criminals. You're loving this, aren't you?" "You stole from me," I said calmly. "You trashed my name for years. What did you expect me to do? Keep quiet forever?" Amanda stepped forward, her fake smile mask gone. "You think you're better than us because you fix old bikes and make a couple of bucks? You're still a joke, Dean. Always will be." I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't rise to the bait. "Return my $4,000, and I'll consider dropping the police report," I said. "Otherwise, you can explain it to a judge." "You're really going to sue your own parents?" Dad barked, his voice booming in the hallway. "They stopped being my parents the second they decided to rob me." I shot back. There was a tense silence. Mom's lip quivered as if she wanted to apologize, but couldn't find the words. Brad muttered something under his breath, and then Amanda suddenly stepped closer and slapped me across the face. The sting burned, but I didn't flinch. I just stared at her. "You've got one chance to leave before I call the cops," I said coldly. "Dean, please, don't do this," Mom whispered. "We can work this out as a family." "No," I said firmly. "You all made me the family scapegoat for years. Not anymore. I'm done." I stepped back into the apartment and closed the door in their faces. For a moment, I just stood there, listening to them shout half-hearted apologies and excuses through the wood. Then their voices faded as they finally left. I leaned against the door, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, calm. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't doubting myself. For the first time, I felt in control of my life. I walked back to my bed, my cheeks still stinging from Amanda's slap, and thought, if they think that was my breaking point, they haven't seen anything yet. The weekend after Thanksgiving, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. But this time, most of the calls weren't from my parents. They were from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, people who'd either believed the lies or stayed silent out of convenience. Now, suddenly, they wanted the truth. I started with Aunt Karen, who lived up in Oklahoma. I remembered she once sued my dad over a botched land deal when I was a kid. When I picked up her call, her voice was as sharp as I remembered. "Dean, honey, I just saw your video," she said. "I knew your father was reckless, but I didn't think he'd stoop this low. He's in deep, isn't he?" I told her everything. The stolen cash, the phone call, even the mountain of debt Harold, the financial advisor, had revealed. She listened in stunned silence. "That man has always been about image, not family," she said finally. "You're doing the right thing exposing them. Don't let them drag you down." By Saturday evening, I had 3 more calls like that. My cousin Matt, who'd always kept his distance, confessed that he'd been told I was in and out of jail, something my parents apparently spread to justify not inviting me to family events. When I told him the truth, his shock quickly turned into anger. "They made you the family punching bag so no one would look too closely at them," Matt said. "Well, I'm done with them. I'm on your side, Dean." The tide was turning. I could feel it. On Sunday, I got an unexpected call from Megan, my cousin's wife. Her voice trembled. "Dean, I think some of the down payment for our house came from your parents," she admitted. "They said it was their savings, but now I'm worried. Did they use money that wasn't theirs?" I told her I didn't have proof of that yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. The realization hit her hard. "I feel sick," she said. "If they stole from you, God knows where else that money came from." Meanwhile, I kept building my evidence file. Harold, the financial advisor, emailed me years of statements and loan details. I started piecing together a timeline of financial mismanagement, unpaid loans, bounced checks, and suspicious transfers. My lawyer, Jenna, called on Sunday afternoon. "Dean, I've reviewed the notice we sent. If they don't return your money, we can escalate. But I think what you're doing, gathering allies, might hit them harder than any lawsuit. People like your parents thrive on reputation. When that crumbles, they crumble." By Sunday night, I felt the shift. The extended family group chat, once hostile to me, was now divided in two. Half the people were demanding answers from my parents. The other half stayed awkwardly quiet, like they were realizing they'd been duped all along. I wasn't done, not even close. Monday morning, I got the message I knew was coming. "Everyone's meeting at the ranch house. Be there, or we decide without you. The text came from Brad, full of his usual smugness, but I could feel the desperation between the lines. They weren't in control anymore, and they hated it. I drove out to the ranch that evening, the old dirt road kicking up dust in the pale sunset. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw nearly a dozen cars parked outside. It looked like a full-scale family summit. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them waiting for me to explain myself like I was the one who had something to answer for. Inside, the living room was packed. My parents sat on the worn leather couch, Mom wringing her hands, Dad trying to look stoic, but failing miserably. Amanda and Brad were huddled by the fireplace, whispering like they were strategizing for a war council. "Dean," Dad said as I stepped in, his tone rehearsed. "We need to talk about this nonsense you've been spreading." I stood near the doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. "Nonsense? You mean the truth?" Mom's voice was trembling but stern. "You're tearing this family apart. The things you sent, they were cruel, unnecessary. They were recordings." I cut in, my voice even. "Your voices, your words. Was it cruel when you told me I was worthless? Was it unnecessary when you stole my savings?" The room went quiet. My Uncle Ray cleared his throat, looking uneasy. "Dean, is all this really true? Did they take your money?" "They admitted it on the phone," I said. "You want proof? Here." I pulled out my laptop, set it on the coffee table, and hit play. The room filled with my mother's voice. "Don't come home for Christmas, Dean. You're a disgrace." Then Brad's taunting laugh. "We voted you out. No Christmas for losers." Every face in the room turned to them. Mom's cheeks flushed. Brad muttered, "That was a joke, taken out of context." I clicked to the next slide on the screen, a detailed breakdown of their debts, the unpaid loans from Uncle Ray, the $200,000 hole they were drowning in. "This is the context," I said. "This is what they didn't want you to know while they were busy painting me as the failure." Gasps rippled through the room. Uncle Ray's face turned red as he jabbed a finger toward Dad. "You borrowed 10 grand from me last year and said it was for ranch repairs. Was that a lie?" Dad's jaw tightened. "Ray, this isn't." "Don't you dare." Ray snapped. "You've been lying to all of us." The room erupted. Aunts demanded answers. Cousins muttered about being used, and my siblings were left glaring at me like I had set the fire they'd started. I raised my hand, silencing the noise. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to set the record straight. From now on, I won't speak to Mom or Dad unless 3 things happen. They pay back what they stole, they admit the truth to everyone, and they get therapy to deal with the toxic mess they've created." Amanda scoffed. "Therapy? You've lost your mind." "No," I said quietly. "I've finally found it." I packed up my laptop, leaving behind the stunned silence. For the first time, they weren't laughing at me. They were scrambling, and I wasn't going to give them an inch. The week after the showdown at the ranch was eerily quiet. No group chat explosions, no calls from my siblings, not even a passive-aggressive voicemail from Mom. It felt like the entire family was holding its breath, waiting for me to break first. I didn't. By Wednesday, I started hearing whispers from the few relatives who were still speaking to me. My parents had begun selling off equipment from the ranch. An old tractor, a few ATVs, even Dad's prized F-250 that he used to brag was too valuable to ever part with. Uncle Ray told me flat out that Dad had finally admitted to being over $200,000 in debt. "It's a damn mess," Ray said. "And honestly, I think your video finally made people see them for who they really are." It was strange. I'd spent years being the family scapegoat, and now, suddenly, people were apologizing. Aunt Karen called me on Friday evening, her voice unusually soft. "Dean, I owe you an apology," she said. "We all believed what they said about you because it was easier, but I see now we were wrong. You've worked hard, and they've been using you as a punching bag. I hope you know not all of us are like that." I didn't know what to say. "Thanks, Aunt Karen. That means a lot," I finally muttered. And it did. Brad was a different story. He didn't apologize, but I got a short, awkward text on Saturday. "Hey man, guess I was a jerk. Dad's losing his mind over the money. Maybe we should talk sometime." I didn't reply. Amanda, of course, went the opposite route. She sent me 3 messages in a row, each more venomous than the last. "Congrats, Dean. You've officially ruined this family. I hope you're happy watching Mom cry every day. You're nothing but a bitter coward who went nuclear over nothing." I blocked her number. With the family drama muted, my life started to feel lighter. I threw myself into work at the shop, and one afternoon, my boss pulled me aside. "Dean, you've been killing it lately. How do you feel about taking on a lead role for the next restoration project? Pay bump, too." I accepted without hesitation. For the first time in years, I felt respected for what I actually did, not judged for what I wasn't. At home, things felt normal. I'd been dating this girl, Rachel, for about 6 months, and for the first time, I could talk to her without the weight of my family's drama hanging over me. That Saturday night, we sat on the couch eating takeout, and she said, "You seem different lately, calmer." "I think I finally realized I don't need their approval," I said, and I meant it. Meanwhile, my parents kept trying to contact me. A mix of guilt and desperation came through in their sporadic messages. "Dean, we made mistakes. We just want our family back. We can't fix this without you. Please, don't do this to us." I didn't answer. I'd spent years letting them dictate when I was in or out of the family. Not anymore. For the first time in my life, I chose who had access to me, and they didn't make the list. One evening, I sat in my garage, looking at the half-rebuilt Norton engine I'd been working on the day Mom first called me. I thought about that moment, the anger, the betrayal, the sharp clarity I felt when I finally said enough. It felt like closing a chapter. I tightened the last bolt on the engine, wiped my hands on a rag, and smiled to myself. The family that had spent years trying to break me was finally powerless. I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I was free.